Hello there. My name is Layla, and I'm honored to be here today with my dad, Scott Smith. We are sitting on a swing in beautiful North Carolina talking about the economy.
Hmm. Who would think we talk about the economy?
Definitely not me. I am very naive when it comes to how our economic system works. But I've been talking to my dad for many years about some very big ideas that he has for bringing transformation into our economic system. So recently, I asked him if he would sit down with me and have a discussion where I could try to learn what these ideas are, how they could be implemented, and what the impact would be on our society.
Hmm.
Because whether we like it or not, we're all part of the economic system, we're all impacted. And I think we can sense the pain that a lot of people have being a part of this system, but it's unclear as to why, how things work. And I think because in our minds, economics is such a dense feeling subject, at least for me, I should speak for myself, I kind of avoid getting into it, researching it, learning about it. So I wanted to take some time to talk to you, Dad, today, because I know you've done a lot of research over the years, done a lot of thinking and philosophizing about what could be different, how could it be different, and is it feasible?
Mhm. And the truth is, it can be radically different than it is today.
Right,
Radically different.
right. Because we as humans have designed this system, we've agreed to it, and
Mhm.
just like with anything, things change, they evolve, especially with evolution happening in other sectors of our lives, like
Mhm.
technology and whatnot. We have to change with
Yeah.
the whole, I guess. So the first thing I would like you to talk about a little bit is just give a brief history of who you are, your background, and why you were interested in
Mhm.
studying the economy and then coming up with some of these ideas that you're hoping to get out
Right.
to the public.
So I was a philosophy major in school. I didn't at all care about economics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to scramble when I got out of school because no one hired philosophers. I became an entrepreneur and I actually self-taught myself finance. I
Mm.
learned how to finance commercial real estate.
Okay.
Not that I had any money, but I was the broker. I was the deal maker who would put it together. So I learned how to do that.
Okay.
Um, I look back, I don't even know really how I did that because there was no internet.
How
But
did you learn things without the internet?
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You use the yellow pages a lot. You'd call people on the phone and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the New York yellow pages and I would call banks and I'd talk to them.
Okay.
And I learned about that. And eventually I came up with some big ideas. I'd go out to Wall Street and I'd promote them. And it was how we would securitize commercial mortgages. And I ended up doing the very first of the commercial mortgage-backed securities with mixed properties, apartments, stuff like that in it. And
Okay.
that turned out to be a breakthrough on Wall Street. And it launched a conduit program that transformed the entire 90s. We pumped hundreds of billions into the economy and boomed it using the different structures I'd come up with, which was really
Hmm.
funny. I never thought I'd be involved in anything like that.
Right. Right.
But that's what taught me that there's another economy out there.
Another economy.
Yeah, a monetary economy. There's two economies. There's the real world,
Mm-hmm. Goods and services.
goods and services, food, movies, everything we consume and we produce. And then there's the monetary economy, which is are financial assets that are created, sometimes tied to the real economy and sometimes not even tied to the real economy.
Hmm.
And the trading of all of this, trading gold, crypto, all this kind of stuff, that's its own world. And people make more money in that world than they do in the real world.
Okay. Yeah. So you were exposed to that pretty early on in your quest to kind of
Yeah.
find your career path.
Right.
And so what years was this? The
90s.
1990s. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's maybe talk a little bit about our current financial system.
You mean like what's wrong with, like, why
Yeah,
the divide? Why the inequity? Or
yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about, just in very basic terms, but how we tax,
yeah,
what inflation is, where inflation comes from,
those are good things
and the
to
divide
figure out.
between, the rich and the poor.
Mhm. Well, first of all, I think that we have to recognize that there's a real disservice to our society by the two-party system. In fact, our founding fathers warned us never to have two parties in the Federalist Papers, and it pits two sides against each other when there's no reality to that among people. You
Right.
meet warm-blooded people, we're all people. But a narrative begins, and it's effectively brainwashing. And so if you bring up a subject like inflation, a conservative and a liberal may have a different narrative around that.
Right.
You talk about inequity in our economy or the difference between the rich and the poor, you're going to have narratives that come out of the parties.
Right.
There's literally no truth to most all of those narratives. And it's like, so taxes, for example.
What do we tax right now?
We tax our income primarily today. Right. And that's the worst thing in the world we can do. Actually, it's devastating to the economy. It's devastating to us. But I might say that in front of a group of politicians. They'd all nod, and then I'd pause and nothing. Well, what do you do instead? No idea. Right. So, a narrative among conservatives is we're just spending too much. There's no way to afford what we're spending. And the suppressed premise is by taxing our income. They're right. There is no way to afford what we're spending by taxing our income. A narrative among the liberals might be, we're barely meeting society's needs with government spending.
Right.
Some other people need to step up and pay more.
Right.
So you got to divide, right? So which one's right? Right? And they'll argue forever as to why they're right.
At the time.
Neither of them are even close to the truth. That's what I discovered in my research.
So what is the truth?
The truth is very simple. It's that the economy that we live in is a combination of the material economy and the monetary. It's both of them together. And not even 1 in a million would have any idea the size of the monetary economy versus the material.
Okay, so let's pause for a moment and let's define what the material economy is and
what the monetary is.
Monetary economy.
Exactly.
And did you come up with these terms?
Yeah, those terms I came up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the material economy.
Material economy is probably what you study if you do study economics. It's the supply of goods and services. So supply and demand, prices, supply and demand, and all that.
Right.
And humans obviously have to manufacture everything we consume. Chairs don't fall out of the sky, right? So we make all this stuff. And that's where our standard of living comes from. How much stuff do we have, And with technology, we've actually gotten really good at doing that. that's the silver lining. That's what we're missing. And at the same time, we've developed a monetary economy. And it's always been there in some degree. It's like when we used gold, the monetary economy would have been just people who had to dig the gold out of the ground. That was sort of the material economy activity. But then trading that gold, distributing that gold, lending that gold out, that's the monetary economy. It was pretty limited. It was limited to gold.
Right.
So back then, the monetary economy wouldn't really have been even a fraction of the material economy.
Nowadays,
Nowadays, it's taken on a life of its own, and few people understand how big it is.
okay.
So again, how do you size these things?
Can you name some things within the
In the monetary economy?
Yeah.
Yeah, derivatives.
Derivatives.
How many people even know what a derivative is, right? Mortgage-backed securities, treasury bonds, stocks, cryptocurrency,
Mhm.
bonds, commodities, all of these things. There's the trading of precious metals. It's very technical how you create all this stuff.
The trading of
Precious metals.
precious metals is a part of the monetary economy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, people trade gold. They don't even have gold. This synthetic, there's indexed funds that trade. You've all agreed you're going to trade on the value of gold, but no one's actually going to hold any gold. As long as you agree, you can do that.
Well,
Yeah, some people make
I
profits
have
off
no
of that.
idea
Right.
about that. Okay. So within this realm, there's a massive amount of money exchanging.
Massive is an understatement. It is so, okay, so first of all, you can't Google and find it because I tried that, I spent years trying to figure out how much is there. Ask around, my favorite investment bankers, no idea, a few little pinpoints. There's this professor, University of Wisconsin, he did a study and a look at that. And it's like, holy mackerel, there's a lot, but he's picking a piece of it. Turns out the data is there and it is published and it is publicly available. And it's in a book published by the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. Well,
Okay.
who would think to go to Switzerland and find this book? It's online. Bottom line is this. The material economy is kind of the GDP, the amount of goods produced.
Right.
That's around 25 trillion. The monetary economy is over 9,000 trillion.
Okay. And you can
9,000 to
find this in
25.
this book in
Yeah.
Switzerland. They're keeping track of what is it, like country by country?
Country by country. Every country except China and Israel participate in this.
Okay. So that information is out there and is
Publicly available.
publicly available.
It's not easy reading. You're going to have to go through a lot of charts.
Not light, fun reading.
No, but
Okay.
it's there.
Okay.
It's there.
Okay. So right now, kind of coming back to taxes,
Mm-hmm.
we
We
as a
tax
society,
income.
we tax income. So we are focused on a very narrow amount of
Yeah,
money within the
right.
whole economic system.
We're focused on 1/4 of 1% of the real economy.
Okay. And what's happening with all this money?
The rest
Yeah.
is not, it doesn't come into play in our tax system. So we tax personal income, what we
Mhm.
make. We tax corporate income, what corporations make. We tax property. So that would be an
Right.
apartment building or a home.
Mhm.
We tax your car. You pay, a tag tax.
Yeah.
We tax our phone bills. We tax when we're in a car. We tax when we stay in a hotel. There's tourist taxes.
Right.
There's all these taxes all have to do with buying things
Okay.
or our
Or
income.
your earned income. Okay. So I
Yeah.
think we can kind of segue into the the protocol that you've come up with,
Um,
or how would you
what
call
co-
it?
what could-
It's,
You call it a payment fee.
okay,
It'd be like a fee. It'd be a tax, but it'd be a fee you'd levy on any time money changed hands. Okay,
and
so,
how much would that fee be?
okay, so I put it at 1/4%. So that's 1/4 of 1%. So in other words, let's turn that into income. If you earn 100 grand a day, you pay around 40,000 in taxes. Okay, it's around 40%
Right now?
right now. That's what you pay today with the taxes that exist.
Okay,
The Financial Freedom Act would cancel all of those taxes. You don't pay any of that. Instead, you pay this 1/4% fee, which if you earn 100,000 comes to $250.
okay.
So it's a tax break. Your taxes
A
drop
little bit of a tax
from
break.
40 grand to 250, right?
So, okay, but
mean,
that works because
There's
you're
so much
taxing,
money in the monetary
you're
economy.
taxing every time money
Yes.
exchanges.
Yes. So it
And-
does not catch up to warm-blooded humans. It actually comes out of the system. So for somebody
Hmm.
earning millions of dollars, they're still getting a tax break. It's
Okay.
1/4%. But here's why it works. If you taxed $9,000 trillion at 1/4%, you generate $19 trillion in revenue for the government. Right now,
Okay.
the government generates around 5 or 6 trillion.
5 or 6 trillion just coming from the taxes that we have been talking about.
What
the
we have been
income,
talking about. Onerous
Yeah.
taxes on you bring in around 5, 6 trillion for the government.
5, 6 trillion. Okay,
And we're short by, say, 2 trillion a year. So we borrow that every year. We're running
Uh-huh.
short.
Where do we borrow that from?
Oh, that's its own story.
Okay.
That's monetary economy's other little game. I mean, it's a
Okay,
very
well, maybe we
lucrative
can,
game.
maybe we can go into that at
Yeah.
some other point, but let's stick with
The
where we're
tax.
at right now. So
Okay.
generally speaking, the government's pulling in 5 to 6 trillion dollars a
Mhm.
year based on how taxes are
Mhm.
right now
Mhm.
with this payment tax plan, that's what you're
Pay-
calling it.
Payment fee, 1/4%
Payment fee.
payment fee, they pull in 19 trillion.
Every time money is
Every year they pull that in.
exchanged, 19 trillion would
19.
be pulled in.
Mind-boggling amount. You go to Congress and talk about that, they'd be bowled over. So what does that mean? If you did that,
Mhm.
we could pay off our national debt in less than 10 years.
Well,
Okay,
that would be great because I don't think there's any
there's
plan
no hope for that one. Other than
for the
this,
national
there's
debt.
no hope for that. Yeah.
Okay,
It's not even on the table among either of the parties.
right.
Okay,
We just ignore that.
we ignore that. We ignore that death knell. I mean,
Right.
it's going to kill our economy if we don't do something about it, but we ignore it.
Okay, so we could pay off the national debt
Pay off the national
within
debt.
10 years. What else could we do with that excess
You-
money?
You could, okay, you could pay everyone substantial basic income of, say, 24,000 a year for everyone, and then it goes to 35,000 when you turn 70. So you now have a guaranteed retirement for everyone and this basic income. You could provide free healthcare. You could provide free college. You could provide free daycare
Mm,
if you're earning under 75 grand or going to college. You could provide earned income credits. So if you're making 30 a year, you actually take home 45 a year.
Wait, let's slow down on that. Okay, so yeah, because universal basic income is becoming
People-
more and more of
It's a hot topic.
a
Yeah.
hot topic. Exactly. You hear people like Elon Musk and
Yeah, I mean, people blithely talk about, oh, let's pay basic income, but if we're taxing income, there ain't no way to do it. You know,
yeah,
there's just no way to do it. And you're already running a deficit. Where you're going to raise taxes and, and run, I mean, but with a payment fee, you can so easily do it. And that would,
$24,000 a year.
for everyone, even if you're making $1 million a year, you'd still get your 24,000. You get a check every month for $2,000. That's because you're a citizen of the country. And
Okay,
with a payment fee, you can do that.
okay.
And then when you turn 70, it bumps up to like $3,000 a year. So you've got something to retire on, just automatically. 'cause you're
$3,000 a year,
a month.
a month, okay.
Yeah. 36 a year.
Okay, so, and then let's go back to what you were saying with having a job on top of that,
Earned income credits.
earned income
Because like if
credits.
you're paying basic income, you also want to build a stimulus in there and an incentive in there for people to work.
Right,
So
which
somebody,
that's a whole topic in itself with
right,
how
how much do people need to work?
with
With
how much
technology.
technology
Right.
is changing. And I think, yeah, on more of a like social, emotional, spiritual level, that's gonna be a
Yeah.
very interesting
It's going to change.
topic, because our purpose is our work
Right.
for the most part. So how do we find purpose outside of that when AI and these incredibly intelligent advanced technologies are coming into play and they can do jobs better than all of us?
Yeah, there are entire factories today that are dark. They don't have lights in them because there aren't any humans in them, and they manufacture stuff. And that's going to be more the norm
Mhm.
as time goes by.
But for me, I feel I see where there's a lot of fear with that coming into play
Sure.
you know, yeah, with a lot of humans. But there's also such immense opportunity
Mhm.
that could come with that. And I know there have been a lot of pilots out there where people have been doing little universal basic income tests in different communities. And
Yeah.
what I've read so far is that
They
people
work.
use that money
Yeah.
very consciously, very smartly. It goes directly to bills that they haven't been able to pay, to their rent, to their food. And I was just reading one recently, which I wish I could remember where this pilot was, but they were very happily surprised to see how many people started businesses.
Right.
Once they kind of had their basic needs met, then they felt like, oh, okay, I have this
Yeah.
safety net and I can start that business I've been wanting to. I can pursue that art project. And for me, I get really excited about the idea of I can give back to my community more.
Right.
You know, we can figure out ways to help heal our planet, heal each other.
Mhm.
There's a lot of possibility, but I know that there's a lot of fear out there of like, oh, well, if people aren't going to be working and there's no incentive to work, what are they going to do?
Right. So you pay earned income credits to incentivize people to
Okay,
work
yeah, so
on
let's
top
go.
of the basic income. So
Let's go back to that.
as the economy changes, initially when you need workers, you're going to pay a lot more on the earned income credits because you want people to work and less on the basic income or universal income. But if technology really does sweep in and make the changes we all hope it does, you can pay less earned income and more basic income, universal income. You can balance the two. The point is today you don't have enough revenue to do any of that.
Right.
And that's the whole, and that's where the fight begins, if in amongst my conservative friends, when they see universal income coming from a payment fee, they're like happy to take the check. They're not worried about it.
Okay.
But when they hear it coming out of the mouth of a politician who's going to tax them more, suddenly they don't like universal income.
Right. It's
It's
understandable.
just understandable. It's no mystery there. And so,
And I think on the liberal side, people would be
well, they're like, let's
open.
tax the rich and have some universal income, well, that
Right.
works
And
for them.
we've been just stuck in this.
We've been stuck in a
this divide and-
stupid divide that doesn't actually address reality.
And I think it will be a really beautiful thing to start moving towards ideas and systems that really can help
Yes,
unite us,
right.
so that we can really
Yep.
consciously evolve kind of out of this space that we've been in, where there's just such
Right.
animosity towards each other, and just ridiculous that you even have to choose a side if I'm either right or left, and that's all
Right.
there is. to
Well,
life. But
I'd registered independent long time ago, and I began to see the impact that partisan politics was having on me personally, and the narratives. And when I began to research them, and like we talked about taxes, there is no truth to the narrative of the conservatives or the liberals about taxes. We're simply taxing the wrong thing.
I like that.
That's all there
Very,
is. It's just as simple
very
as that.
simple. Yeah.
And by the way, we've taxed the wrong thing many times in the history of this country, and we've switched to something new. We've always switched tax
Oh,
bases.
let's talk about that a little bit,
That's the
because
norm. It's the norm. We had one tax base when the country was founded, and it shifted and shifted over the centuries. The income has been the longest running tax base, and our economy
Okay.
has changed more in that 100 some years. So what's the big surprise that we need to change tax bases today?
Okay.
Before income, it was 80% of our revenue came from alcohol and tobacco. Well, that ended with the prohibition,
Right.
and
Okay.
and then we had World War II, and suddenly they needed more money, and they switched to income. There was a lot of discussion at the time that it was going to be temporary, but it just kind of fell in place. And so people think
Interesting.
that's how short-sighted people are. They look at it and they go, well, who needs to pay more income taxes? And it's like, no one needs to pay any income taxes. That could have gone away. Well, we could have done this as long as 20 years ago, but the monetary economy has been growing faster and faster. And so today's actually sort of the perfect time to do it.
Okay.
And our nation is in a unique position. We're the only nation in the world that can actually do it as efficiently, because we have the largest monetary economy relative to our population. So we're in a really unique, magical spot to be able to do this.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about getting this idea out there,
I'm going to have to rely on people like you and podcasts.
yeah, so that is kind of leading into my question. Do you feel it needs to be more of a grassroots movement, getting the idea to as many people as possible so that we can then
absolutely
bring it to our politicians, like this is what needs to happen.
Our leaders are followers. They take polls. They study what their constituent thinks. They do their sound bites to play to get elected. They're not out there actually coming up with new ideas and leading us. They're not leaders, they're followers. So
yeah, they're not innovating.
This has to come from the grassroots.
Okay.
And believe me, as soon as the grassroots, if this gets out there, people saying they want it, every politician will run on it.
So I want to talk about some more aspects of the Financial Freedom Act. So we have taxes. You have told me in other conversations about this concept called banking 2.0.
Oh, yeah.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's my favorite part, actually.
Okay, great.
It's the one that gets people the least excited. It's a little harder to understand, but I mean, we absolutely need to get rid of income taxes and put in a payment tax, and we then can pay all these social services. They have to be bottom up. That changes a lot in our life. But
a lot.
like more than any other change we've had in the history of the country.
Right.
Banking 2.0 cements the deal. And it opens the door to entrepreneurship, growth of new companies, growth of that material economy in a much more powerful way. It also opens the door to home ownership for everyone, or for a large percentage of people, because today, if you buy a house and you pay for it for 30 years, you pay the builder once and the bank twice. In other words, 2/3 of the money you pay goes to the bank. They didn't build the house. 1/3 goes to the builder. What's wrong with that picture? it shouldn't be that
It's
way.
insane.
Well, think of this. It's the same thing for all the infrastructure in our economy. So if you've got a factory and you're building widgets in it and you financed it,
Hmm.
the cost of interest over the history of the factory is 2/3. So the same, if you're going to buy a semi for transportation, you're going to buy a steamship, you're going to build a mine and finance it. The cost of financing is most of the cost
Okay.
of everything. Where do you think inflation comes from?
Well, honestly, I've been wondering that
It comes from the
recently.
accumulated cost that the monetary economy imposes on the material economy to
Hmm,
build out and operate all this stuff. Everything's financed.
interesting. Yeah, I feel like inflation too is just one of those white elephants in the room type things, like just
No one wanted to talk about in the 90s and the 10s and the recently it's gotten so out of hand. Suddenly people are talking about it. What they're whitewashing it will raise interest rates. And now
yeah, this is still
don't worry, it'll be under control.
it's still not really being addressed, and
Inflation comes from many, many factors, probably more, and we can discuss in one podcast.
okay.
But they all originate in the monetary economy. So the way we
Interesting.
finance our debt today, the way, all this stuff. It's like banking, the monetary economy, it costs us today. It costs us a lot. It's not producing the goods and services we use.
Right.
It's a drain. It makes that stuff cost more.
Hmm.
We want it to be as light as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So banking 2.0
Yes, coming back to banking
turns that
2.0.
on its head.
Okay, so what is banking 2.0?
Banking 2.0 is a radical but very simple concept. It's the idea that the central bank, the Fed, we want to call the Fed our central bank, should be owned by the people and for the people.
Oh,
We own our central bank, right? We own our national parks. Supposedly, we own our politicians. We vote them in and out. The power should be in the people. So money is an invention of mankind. We founded the Fed back on the heels of what's called depository banking. Depository banking means a bank can only lend out as much as it has. Makes sense, right? I mean,
right.
how else? And we create a central bank and we create the dollar. We invent that.
Mm-hmm.
And our Federal Reserve has the ability, and it does, to generate a reserve. It can create money out of thin air, a reserve, and it can pump it into the economy. That's what they did under quantitative easing. Well, instead, why don't we just have it that the central bank is where our money goes?
Okay.
We deposit it there and it disappears into a black hole. And when you want it back, it comes back. You don't have some bank using your money and lending it out anymore. Your money just goes into this central black hole. It's recreated when you need it. You don't earn any interest on it, though. Okay, you're not going to earn any money off of your money, and neither will the banks.
Okay.
The banks, when they want to make a loan, they go to the central bank and they say, hey, I need $250,000. Here's Joe. He qualifies for the loan. He's able to pay it back. They generate the 250 and that bank lends it out with no interest.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not having to pay for deposits anymore. They're not having to pay to attract money anymore. The money is created when it is needed and it's loaned out. So you have very strict lending parameters, not free money. It's not you just throw it out. You have to pay it back, but you don't have to pay interest on it. Your mortgage is cut in third.
Hmm.
If you pay $3,000 a month, your mortgage would be $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Why would you pay the other $2,000 a month? It's not for anything.
Yeah.
There's no value you got out of it.
What I'm feeling as you're talking about all this is, well, we've created everything out of just, our minds anyway. So why not just create
We
a new
created
system?
money out of our minds. Money is an invention of mankind. It does not have a cost of funds.
Mhm.
not
So-
if you have a central bank that creates it. Now, if you want to do a startup, you go to the bank. It's low cost money to do a
Mm.
startup. Yeah, it's not free money. You have to qualify for it.
Yeah.
That has to be kept strict. Why add that extra layer in there?
Hmm.
Why add it in there? It only hurts us. Now, will the banks go along with that?
That's
Next
my next
question.
question. What are the banks going to think?
Well, first of all, it does reduce their profitability in a way. They're not earning the interest, but it also expands what they can do. Today, you cannot go to a bank and they provide you the money to do a startup.
Okay.
They're not
right,
allowed to. Too risky.
Right.
You know, they can't, they are limited in the amount of financing they can provide by that depository base.
Hmm.
So little banks will be able to compete with the big banks just fine with this. It's who gets the qualified investment, you know, who
Hmm.
brings in qualified deals. Plus, and this is where banks, I believe, ultimately will support it. It allows them to become the international financiers. If our Fed creates money and then Citibank goes and lends it out for some huge project in South Africa and makes money off of that, that strengthens our nation. It
That's a good
brings
concept.
this money back into our nation.
Strengthen
We
our,
become the international financiers under
Yeah.
Banking 2.0, but we're doing it under much more friendly terms than it costs countries today. You're not burdening them down with this interest. You're able to finance this, and you partner with them. So you're an equity partner. They want to put in a dam to produce electricity. The American bank comes in and says, we'll own 20% of that dam, no interest. And there's this constant income stream coming back to the
okay.
US. It's
Okay.
a very fair way to do fine. And today, the World Bank, the IMF, the money that they use to go out there is onerous and it comes out of the pocket of the taxpayer. So that's why a lot of people don't like the World Banks. Like, why is my money going in there to support? You don't do that any more under
Yeah.
Banking 2.0.
Yeah.
That's, you can see Banking 2.0 is my favorite piece because
Hmm.
it's taking the monetary economy, recognizing what it could be and saying, let's all profit off of this. It's as simple as that.
Hmm. Okay. Thanks for
We
explaining
covered a
that.
whole lot of stuff in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll have to go back and listen to that a few times. But so you have these different pillars in your Financial Freedom Act. You have
Ooh, I
the
like that.
taxes,
Mhm.
you have
Benefits.
the benefits, you have Banking 2.0.
Mhm.
Anything else, or is that kind
No,
of
that's
the
that's
that's
enough.
the
That's it.
that's the
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
gist?
So if
Okay.
you think about it, um, you know, whatever you're earning, if you add back in the taxes that you're paying, you add in basic income, you take away the cost you're paying for healthcare now, add that back in,
Mhm.
putting kids through college, put that back in. You go take your mortgage and cut it in a third. You add all that. How's your standard of living gonna go?
Yeah.
Skyrockets our standard of
Skyrocket.
living.
Yeah. Okay, so I think a lot of people are probably wondering, what's the catch? Where are there potential downfalls? Like
Who's
where
against-
could
who
this
would
go
be
wrong?
against it? Yeah. So an idea who might be against it would be the families and the groups that have own these financial assets that are trading. So I've met with some of the wealthiest families in the world and said, here's my plan. I'm going to go out there and publicize this. Here's what I see. All your financial assets, they're tied to this material economy. Yeah, you're going to be paying a lot more taxes than you are now, but that money plows into the material economy, stimulates it. Your financial assets are worth more. And they said, we'd see it that way too.
Okay,
So
so you haven't,
the
so
wealthy
far you
will
haven't
do.
gotten a lot of
Mm,
pushback.
I've got no pushback. I've also talked to hedge fund managers because they're trading those assets. And they
Mhm.
said 0.25% one time, and we get rid of corporate taxes, we can handle.
Okay.
So I've had no pushback from the hedge fund industry. People are always looking like, who'll be against it? Is it liberal or conservative? And I said, this is the first monetary technological advance you've seen. Like, was anyone against the internet? Was anyone against cars instead of horses? Was anyone against jet planes? Was jet planes a liberal or a conservative? Nothing. Is that they don't even register on the spectrum of liberal and conservative.
Mm,
So true economic policy should have nothing to do with politics.
right. I think we're just so conditioned that there's always going to be like a catch, or
We always think
it's too
that.
good to be
Mhm.
true. And I mean, I think our world too is still really dedicated to this idea of competition,
Oh, right,
and people having a one up on somebody else, and
right,
people being very afraid of ideas
right,
like communism or things like that, where
right,
things are being evenly distributed. But I'm not saying that this is
right. Yeah,
communist
nor has
nature, but
communism ever even been tested on this planet. Totalitarianism has. You go look at Russia. Was that communist? No, the state owned everything. The people didn't own anything. That was the opposite of communism,
mm,
And this is a celebration of free enterprise, not
okay.
capitalism.
But yeah, I think we should make that really
There's a
clear
difference.
though, because
If you Google it, you might not find the difference between free enterprise and capitalism, but there's a huge difference. Capitalism is he who has the gold writes the rules, and you pay through the nose for it. Free enterprise is he who works the hardest, has the best idea, applies himself the most, moves up. That's free enterprise. You want free enterprise. Banking 2.0 facilitates free enterprise. Our current capitalistic system holds back free enterprise,
okay.
slows it down. That's a real good difference.
Yeah, that's a great point,
Mhm,
I think.
mhm.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I mean, just remember, almost everything you've ever been told about the economy or politics is wrong.
Thanks, Dad.
The real truth is always uplifting
Hmm.
and exciting.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's really inspiring.
Took me a long time to realize that.
Wow. So, what are your ideas for getting these ideas out there more?
So I'm got a small group of people, and we're getting together, and we're figuring out how to properly promote this. And
What avenues are you taking with that?
well, we're looking at validation of some of it. There's these think tanks in Washington. Some are conservatives and some are liberals. So we're looking at going into a liberal and a conservative think tank and having them do studies and prove it out. We'll let them know they're each doing it. And we're going to let them know we don't think it's liberal or conservative, but we're going to let them both run at it.
Okay.
And they come up with the same conclusion, it can be done. That would be a beautiful thing.
That would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and then we're also, people hear about this, they get excited. So we're building a team.
Okay.
And
Cool.
then we want to, do the podcast, the speaking thing, all that miserable stuff. I'll probably have to do that.
Oh, but podcaster, at least for my generation, podcaster huge. It's where I get a lot of my
Well, I'd rather do that
information.
than fly to New York to be on a show,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
use Zoom like this. That's okay. I'll stay at home and be on podcasts.
Yeah, definitely. And you have a book?
I do have a book. Yeah, we're revising it, improving it. It's called A Tale of Two Economies, because that's what this is about. The last 100 years is this tale of these two economies, sort of duking it out.
Right.
And us understanding, like, wait a minute, money was made for man, not man made for money. Right?
Right.
And so we have to learn how to adhere to that rule.
Okay, and where, so you're revising your book right
Yeah,
now? so
it's on Amazon.
so people
It's
can still
even
find
as
that
it's
on Amazon.
revised,
Okay.
you'll always
Tale
be
of
able
Two
to see
Economies.
Tale of Two Economies. There's two tales of two economies.
Okay,
Another economic friend of mine wrote one. So it's
really?
the one by Scott Smith.
Okay,
His is about the two economies are Cuba and Hong Kong and how they differ from each other. It's really, you buy both books.
yeah, promote his book while we're at it.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thanks for
talking to
having me on
me.
this podcast.
Yeah,
Thanks for
of
doing this
course.
podcast. The world needs an uplifting podcast.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We hope everyone out there has a wonderful day and that some of this made sense and was inspiring
Yeah.
and can bring some hope to
Yeah.
our current financial pain and struggles.
Yeah.
Things can evolve.
They can evolve.
All right.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Bye-bye.